We'll go ahead and get started here. I want to first off thank everybody for attending I think this may be our inaugural sale on virtual Zoom all staff day. So, and congratulations to that group that put this together. I know Dr. Morris and Cassie and other folks in IT have made this option available. And so I'm appreciative, and it's good to see those of you by face or by name today on the screen. We appreciate you guys attending. I'm representing Student Affairs. Jamie Ward and I will be available. We'll be sharing some brief information with you during the supporting and reporting session this morning. I've been saying for the last probably last semester and a half that folks want to know about COVID and generally either money or enrollment. And so we will talk a little bit just briefly about COVID today before I talk about 3 other reports. But we wanted to first take a quick opportunity to talk through COVID and share with you a little bit of feedback. There were 1,498 COVID submissions or reports submitted on our COVID page last fall. So roughly these 1,500, of course, I'm sure there were a few that, that did not report, but we certainly had a very active semester with COVID. We do want to thank those of you, faculty especially, and those of you that were providing services to students during this time. I've spoken with some faculty that I've passed in the halls this week, and I've tried to just share my thanks with them. We understand that at any one point you were teaching on ground, you were teaching virtually, you were teaching online through Blackboard, virtually through Zoom. You yourself may have been in a position where you were quarantined or isolated at home. So you weren't in class or in your office, but you were having to keep all of your students up to speed from a different location in a different format. So at any one point, it looked like most faculty were teaching through 2 or 3 or 4 different methods just to keep students up to speed. And as we worked through those 1,498 cases, and we were talking with students really a minimum of twice, really once at the beginning of their report and as they were coming out of a quarantine or isolation, we were continuing to help them reach out to you all as faculty and reach out to advisors and other offices where services were being delivered. They just, for the most part, were saying faculty have been fantastic. We've been able to reach them. They've responded to us quickly, and they've made it easier. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We do think we will have a significant number of reports this spring, so we think it'll look similar. But thank you. There have been a few changes to the quarantine timeline. I won't get into those details today, but I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen, and I'm going to show you just a couple of quick things. Can you all, Jamie, can you see the web page? Great, super, it worked. So here's the COVID-19 button. Wanted to make sure everyone understood that if you click on the COVID-19 button right here, it will open up our COVID main page, and there are a series of links on the left-hand side. The first thing I wanted to show you is that there is a "How are you feeling" link, and that is to the updated poster that contains the procedures for spring. You'll notice that there's a yellow header. If you've been on campus this fall, this was green, kind of a lime green color. So a yellow header indicates that we're now, that's the updated flyer for spring 2021. I won't go in again to the details of the flyer, but I do want to point out that on the second page of the flyer, people in quarantine are those people who are not sick, but are staying away from others because they've been in close contact to a positive case. So they may develop symptoms and they may develop COVID. And it is this group in this quarantine category where things have changed. There are now, and I think we believe this is good news. We believe now that we know there's an opportunity for someone now to essentially quarantine for 10 days rather than the 14 days. That quarantine of 10 days can be extended to 14 days if they exhibit symptoms, begin to feel ill, there's an opportunity to even shorten that 10-day into something that's only 7 days long if they actually take a test at the right time, it's negative, and symptoms don't develop. The key here is you don't need to necessarily know and understand the details, but for anyone who is experiencing, and this is the key right in here, if someone's had contact symptoms, they've tested, they're waiting on test results, or they've tested positive, if they'll make a report, we will assign that report to a case manager that we've trained, and they'll walk through these details with them. So, Jamie, is there anything I didn't share about COVID before we move on?
I think that'll get it. Really, those changes, those will come from the case managers when they're signed. So just continue to encourage everyone, faculty, staff, and students to complete that report online, and somebody reaches out to them typically within that day.
Let me show you. Matter of fact, just to make sure we're square on that, I've clicked on the COVID button again on our homepage. And if you click on the link, this was the how are you feeling that took you to the flyer. If you will click on the COVID-19 report, this is the report that we ask folks to complete who meet any of these 4 criteria right here. It is very, very brief. And we find it takes a minute and a half to complete the report. Once you hit submit, it enters our system, and a couple of us have access to be able to sign those reports to the case manager. So it is very easy to access. Let me pause. Does anyone have any questions about that before I move on to the other reports we're going to talk about today?
Hey, Tiff, I do have one quick question. This is Heather.
Yeah.
The new flyers, are we going to get them to put out, or is that just for on the website?
I verified that this morning, and they are making their way around to get those posted across campus, and they're actually getting those out to the centers as well. Yes, those
Perfect.
will be up.
Thank
Good
you.
question. Thank you. Okay, so the only, again, supporting and reporting, so supporting students and making reports. There are 3 other reports that we wanted to just briefly share with you in the time we have left. Trying to watch my time here. If, again, we're on the webpage, if you hover over the current students link and go down to the Crowder Cares icon, you click there. There we go. This is our Crowder Cares page, and it contains a link not only to that COVID illness report that we just shared with you and talked about, but it contains actually 3 more reports. It contains the academic alert report, it contains the student in distress report, and it contains a Title IX sexual harassment report. These are active links, and I'll show you here in just a second. I'm just going to mention this now, and I won't mention it again. There also is a resource list of community resources. It covers all of our counties where our centers are located. So we have Nevada resources, Cassville resources, Joplin resources, a few in McDonald County as well. There is a resource list here that you can click on, and they are, the resource list provides you with resources that you can then share with students based on categories: mental health, homelessness, veteran services, an anonymous text line if a student is in distress. I do want to make sure we do get calls from faculty who would like to have access to the list, and we've just made it here available for anyone who wants to come to this page. We'll talk through these 3 reports, and this first one is an academic alert report. I know if you've been around for a semester or 2, you're familiar with this if you're a faculty, but this report is used for faculty and staff who have students having academic issues. And they need academic support. So when you click on that link, you will see the academic alert basically reminds you that if a student is having attendance or performance concerns, absences, excessive absences, there are issues with test scores and failing grades, this is the report you would use to report that. As a faculty and staff, you can put your information in here. You would provide the name and the ID number of the student. If you happen to have the ID number, that is very, very helpful to us. And then we've tried to make this as easy as possible. And so that we have a group of academic alert case managers. So by clicking these boxes and selecting the academic issues that apply to the student, that helps our academic alert case manager follow up with that student and come alongside to support you. We encourage all of our faculty and staff to initiate and work with those students and communicate with that student. And then once you're finding that that problem or that academic concern is continued, then you report it. And then we know we're coming alongside you and the student to help with whatever that concern may be. I can also tell you that if there was a concern that needed some documentation, for example, occasionally we get a writing sample from a speech or an English paper, that can be submitted here. Keep in mind, this academic alert is for academic issues. If we go back to the Crowder Cares page, the second link to the second report is the Student in Distress report. And this is for staff and students to also voluntarily indicate or alert us to a student who may have non-academic issues or maybe in some kind of distress. This is where our care team and a different set of what we would refer to as case managers, they're reaching out to students in distress without those academic issues maybe being present. So again, it's pretty similar. There's a little more detail here, but we ask for the reporter to put in as much of this information as they can. Provide the information on the student. Again, a name and an ID is very helpful. That helps us make sure we all know we're talking about the same student. And then the questions at the bottom, again, it's a checkbox, a list of boxes, and we'd like to know if you're reporting a student concern, what are those categories or issues that you'd like to report, and you can select all that apply. And again, that helps the case manager address the concern. You can see the list there, so I won't read those. You can also provide a little bit of a description. We do again ask that if you see a student in distress, that it's completely within our purview, and it's really, we're encouraging you to ask that student. I've noticed that I'm observing, I see that you looked upset today. Can you tell me what's going on? Whatever they give you, if you would at least ask them before making the report, we know someone has at least tried to initiate some conversation with the student. And then that gives you an opportunity to let us know here what happened and why and what they may have told you. And if I could just be, I'll be brief here, but sometimes we realize students are reported and it appears there's a significant amount of distress. No one felt comfortable asking. And then we find out that their dog is sick, or that they just had an uncomfortable conversation with their boyfriend. Well, we thought, not that that's not serious, but we realized that that is maybe not what we all assumed was happening based on some of the behavior. So if you all could, before making that report, talk to that student briefly and get a little more information, that helps. And again, just like the other report, supporting documentation options are available before submitting. The last report is again, I'm on the Crowder Cares page where the reports are located. And here is a link to our Title IX sexual harassment report. Anything that would include harassment, misconduct, sexual harassment, misconduct, anything regarding gender or gender-based violence, those are the kinds of things that would be reported here. You can see the list of the things that could be included. Certainly this isn't a full list, but that gives you a sense of what can be reported here. And once you click the link, the report comes up. We do provide some specific information here about if you are a victim or a witness to a sexual assault. We do provide some additional emergency information. We've put that here. And again, the person making the report, here's the background information of the person making the report, the victim, or the name and the ID of the person that's involved. And then we do have, we just allowed the person making the report to provide information on the incident with as much detail as possible. And then, of course, there's a way to submit. This report is only addressed by about 3 people on campus. It is very private. This is the report that when it's submitted, it shows up on our, those of us that have access, the 3 of us, it shows up on our mobile device, and we know that it is the most urgent kind of report that we do need to address. And so Human Resources, Jamie and me representing students, the 3 of us do have access to this so that we can immediately follow up. This report is not used very often, thankfully. This is a safe, secure campus. Our staff and faculty do a great job of providing support to students in all areas, but we did want to make this report available to folks should it be needed. So with that, let me stop and answer any questions you may have. I'm going to stop sharing too. Jamie, what should I have covered that I didn't?
Yeah. I think you did a great job. Again, just knowing where to access each of the reports, that can be helpful for folks. We're always here though, if you have questions about any of the reports, whether you feel like maybe you should report it or not, go ahead and do it out of caution. And if it's not, it's okay. We can still, we'll walk through that. We can work with you or the student, and there's no issue really with that. We'd rather you report than not in most of those cases. The only thing that somebody brought up in the chat, on our COVID report, new this spring, we've brought on a couple extra case managers, and Cassie Hale out of HR will be addressing all of the full-time employee reports. So any full-time employee who reports a COVID report or any issue with COVID, she will be addressing those and being the one that you can reach out to her to contact, or she will also be contacting you once she receives that report. And then that was a change for this semester.
I should thank our case managers too, Jamie. What do we have? Roughly, we have 17 now, but we operated last fall with roughly 8 or 9 and brought a few folks on as the caseload. They came fast and furious in mid-October, and we reached out to a few folks in the middle of the semester for help and then added a few. So we are very appreciative to that group and for sitting through the training and working through those complicated sometimes processes. So thanks to that group. Okay. Well, I think that's great. I appreciate everybody being here. Again, if you have any questions after we're finished with the session, reach out to somebody in Student Affairs, and we're happy to get back with you. We're happy to see everybody back and look forward to a great spring semester. Hang in there and have fun. Take care.